Good day, everyone. This is Group 5, and we are going to tackle about environmental crisis. Okay, so I am the first reporter for today. I am Lapis John Frederick, and I am here to tackle about, you know what? The first topic of environmental crisis. So what is environmental crisis all about? There are two types of environmental crisis, which is the first one, natural origin and human activity. I mean, the human activity is the second one. Okay, these natural origins are caused by climate change, global warming, desertification, and other natural phenomena and diseases happening around the world that causes massive environmental crisis. Environmental crisis affects not only people but also other animals as well. Those plants, they are all in danger of this environmental crisis as these crises are happening nowadays. On the other hand, human activity environmental crisis is caused by pollution, ozone depletion, land contamination, deforestation, and other human activities that harm the environment. Okay, so there is the recent news that Cagayan Valley have been submerged in the flood, and it really devastated the populace over there. So, environmental crisis by human activity is really, really very bad to the system. Okay, let's move forward. Pollution. Pollution is the first that we're tackle about in this environmental crisis. We see pollution every day, and even ourselves cause pollution to the environment. Can you believe that? Every day we consume plastics. Okay, we consume us ourselves. Those preservatives found in canned goods, noodles as well, there's plastic particles. Okay, so imagine roughly 7 billion people in the world are using plastic daily. Imagine daily. And of course, throwing plastics at sea. That huge amount of pile of trash just riding the waves. There are so many forms of pollution out there. Air pollution, garbage, sewage going into the sea, power plants giving off black smoke. We should not take this lightly because Mother Earth is crying. Next topic is about global warming, which pertains to environmental crisis. Okay, the gradual heating of the Earth's surface, oceans, and atmosphere is caused by human activity, none other. Well, there are some forms of global warming, for example, natural phenomena, volcano eruptions, or that, but mostly it's human activity. Okay, the fossil fuels that were burned that pump carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. These fossil fuels are one of the most materials used nowadays to boost economy. Okay, the Philippines is really using the fossil fuels, to boost power plants, factories. Okay, so coal is very much used to power up engines. Fuel, oil, and gas is also very much used to power up ship vessels, engine vessels. Okay, how many ships running nowadays transporting cargoes anywhere? As a future seafarer, we are saddened by the state that ships are really excreting black smoke like that. So it really needs to be addressed by the government or the UN actually. Okay, so next one is desertification. So what desertification really means by its word desert, okay, is a type of land degradation in dry lands in which biological productivity is lost due to natural processes or induced by human activities. Okay, like dams, for example, creating dams lessens the water flow into the rivers, okay, and it really adapts desertification in the area, whereby fertile areas become increasingly arid otherwise known as soil erosion. It is clear that these problems continue to have important consequences for agricultural and pastoral productivity as well as for the functioning of natural ecosystems. Okay, so most ecosystems have been eliminated. Imagine in the San Andreas, near San Andreas Fault, um, mostly in that area is now deserted. Before there were massive grasslands over there, but now, as well as in Africa, that continent really has the most drastic effect of desertification. Next topic is about ozone depletion. Okay, this topic is very interesting as it can go beyond the scientific method, the traditional method, religious attributes. Okay, so the sun emits electromagnetic radiation at different wavelengths, meaning energy at different intensities. The atmosphere acts like a multi layered shield that acts as a protection for UV rays. It protects the damage to human health. Okay, so when the ozone layer is depleting, it is really a problem to humans and animals. Okay, the UV rays damages the skin cells, damages the eyes, and of course damages our lives. Okay, so the term ozone hole refers to the depletion of the protective ozone layer, the layer that protects that protects the atmosphere. Okay, so it depletes because chlorofluorocarbons have been excreted out of halons gases forms found in aerosol spray cans, refrigerants. When these cans are burned, it releases gases up to the atmosphere and damages the ozone layer. Okay. Next one is about, okay, I think this is the last topic, programs that address environmental crisis. Okay, first is the Philippine Clean Air Act. Okay, let me state, the state shall promote and protect the global environment to attain sustainable development while recognizing the primary responsibility of local government units. Okay, so it promotes the ability of a state to maintain its cleanliness through this Clean Air Act, the cleanliness of the atmosphere from the smoke, from the daily economy, the daily human activity. The government is trying to limit the use of excreting gases, excreting black smoke. Okay, it deals with environmental problems. Okay, so this Clean Air Act focus primarily on pollution to prevent rather than on control and provide for a comprehensive management program for air pollution. Okay, so this is very very helpful to the environment and also to the world. Okay, so next a program is the Climate Change Commission, was established by the Climate Change Act of 2009. This triple C is the principal climate policy-making authority tasked to coordinate, monitor, and evaluate the programs and action plans of the government related to climate change. Okay, so this triple C, this Climate Change Commission is really helpful to the National Framework Strategy on Climate Change, the National Climate Change Action Plan to guide the government in managing climate risk and vulnerability. Okay, so next program is about the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, or the UNCCD. Okay, so this degradation neutralized targets like helping farmers to nurture their grasslands, their lands. So the next program is about the Montreal Protocol. CFCs were commonly found in refrigerants, and they are trying to eliminate those CFCs by this Montreal Protocol, agreed in 1980.
Good morning. My name is Sinan Tauzu, and I will discuss on what is the relationship of population growth to environmental issues.
More people require more resources, which means that as the population increases, the Earth's resources deplete more rapidly. The result of this depletion is deforestation and loss of biodiversity, as humans strip the earth of its resources to accommodate rising population numbers. Population growth also results in increased greenhouse gases, mostly from carbon dioxide emissions or CO2 emissions. For visualization, during that same 20th century that saw fourfold population growth, CO2 emissions increased 12-fold. As greenhouse gases increases, so do climate patterns, ultimately resulting in the long-term pattern called climate change. So the impact of this is the use of resources and of the environmental issues are not equal around the globe. People in developed countries require substantially more resources to maintain their lifestyles compared to people in developing countries. For example, the United States, which contains 5% of the world's population, currently produces a full 25% of CO2 emissions. People in developing countries tend to feel the impacts of environmental problems more acutely, especially if they live in coastal areas directly affected by sea level rise and the extreme weather events that accompany climate change. The most vulnerable population also experience decreased access to clean water, increased exposure to air pollution, and diseases, which may result from decreased biodiversity and may feel the impact more immediately as local resources, including plant and animals, deplete. In 2015, the world population is more than 7.3 billion people. That's more than 7,300,000,000 bodies that needs to be fed, clothed, kept warm, and ideally nurtured and educated. More than 7.3 billion individuals who, while busy consuming resources, are also producing vast quantities of waste, and our numbers continues to grow. The United Nations estimates that the world population will reach 9.2 billion by 2050. For most of our existence, the human population has grown very slowly, kept in check by diseases, climate fluctuations, and other social factors. And it took until 1804 for us to reach 1 billion people. Since then, continuing improvement in nutrition, medicine, and technology have seen our population increase rapidly. So there are two major impacts of the environment due to human activity or due to human population. And first is the consumption of resources such as land, food, water, air, fossil fuels, and minerals. Second is the waste products as a result of consumption such as air and water pollutants, toxic materials, and greenhouse gases. So the relationship of the population growth to environmental issues is that due to the fact of the population growth in the world decreases or gives a risk to our environment, thus resulting for our environment to experience drastic changes like climate changes, pollutions, and many other things.
Good day everyone, this is Cadet Intig and I'm going to discuss about what is the relationship of population growth and to food security. So first, what is food security? So food security as defined by the Food and Agriculture Organization is a situation that exists where all people have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preference for an active, healthy lifestyle at all times. So, 1 billion people are undernourished. Yes, this is right. More expensive food like meat and grains impact food security and economic development. Increasing population drives up demand for food, leading to increased needs for arable land and water. The developing countries have rapidly increasing populations. So next is people worst affected by food crisis already live in poverty. The UNFPA is trying to prevent and manage overpopulation, and it helps other countries understand the current demographic and potential issues. Over 100 million people face food shortages. This may double in 2030. The UNFPA supports countries in building capacity for population data collection and analysis. Governments can plan and manage social protection and food security using their current demographic trends. Changing population and distribution patterns is important for poverty reduction and food security. So, according to Neo-Malthusian theory, or the Neo-Malthusians have negative expectation concerning agriculture production, since they consider agriculture a land-restricted and economic-oriented process. Population has the potential to outstrip agricultural production. It argues that regions with higher population will present a negative relationship with agricultural production. Developing regions will present higher population growth rate and lower agriculture production growth rates, and developed nations will present an inverse relationship. This is an increase in population growth will decrease agricultural production. So the Neo-Malthusians predict a difference between developing regions such as Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and developed regions like Europe, North America, and Oceania. Recent trend shows that since 1990, agricultural output has declined in Oceania, Europe, and North America. On the other hand, Asian regions experience an increase in their agriculture production, particularly because increase in use of fertilizer and genetically modified crops. Additionally, Latin America's agricultural production has recovered since 1990 due to recent agricultural shift in Argentina and Brazil. So this is the effect of population growth on agriculture. Production varies across regions. The global population has been expanding rapidly for many years, standing at around 7.3 billion in 2016, due to a number of factors such as advanced maternity and healthcare. However, the rise brings with it a number of challenges around global sustainability, including needs for more food. As an essential resource, the supply of food is major concern across all countries. But as with any resource, it's dependent on growers, suppliers, and distributors to bring it market. According to Food and Agricultural Organization of United Nations, or the FAO, the global population is expected to increase by around 2.3 billion people between now and 2050. Although this is lower rate to the growth than others seen over the past 40 years, it is still a 30% increase in numbers of people will need feeding. At the same time, the amount of food that will need to be processed will rise almost 70%, and 100% will develop in the world, which means increased supplies of several products to help cope with demands. Earnings in developing countries are expected to rise along with the growth and exceed so-called economic poverty, with the market demands for food continue to grow in line with this level. So in the Philippines, located in the middle of the Pacific, has experienced several threats to food security over the past few years. Food supply has been gravely affected by a string of natural calamities such as typhoon that have rendered farmer crops unusable, while problems caused by the lack of adequate infrastructures have posed an unnecessary and formidable challenge to farmers. A growing income gap between the upper and the lower class has hampered proper access and utilization to food, especially for those who lie in the lower income brackets. So, as population grows, the food production must also expand in order to establish a sufficient food to feed everyone. The food production must not stagnate and is a priority for the most important needs. Its relationship must align as per population growth and food security.
So, good day, sir. Good day, everyone. I am Jandan Variataza, and I am here to report about the relationship of growth of population to sustainability. So, sustainability means meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. In addition to natural resources, we also need social, economic resources. Sustainability is not just environmentalism embedded in most definitions of sustainability. We also find concerns for social equity and economic development, population growth, population aging and decline, as well as migration and urbanization affect virtually and development objectives that are on top of national global development objectives agendas. They affect consumption, production, employment, income distribution, poverty, and social protections. Population growth in particular places increasing pressures on the planet resources, water, forest, land, and the Earth's atmosphere, contributing to climate change and challenging environmental sustainability. However, population dynamics do not only affect critical development objectives, they are themselves affected by social, economic, and environmental changes. Population dynamics do not only pose challenges, they also provide important opportunities for sustainable development. A fall in fertility levels and slower population growth, for example, leads to an increased concentration of the population in the working age range, which can enable countries to reap demographic bonus and jumpstart economic development. Migration can be an important enabler of social and economic development. Today, more than a billion people rely on international and internal migration to escape from poverty and conflict, adapt to environmental and economic shocks, and improve the income, health, and education of their families. Urbanization can be a powerful driver of sustainable development. Higher population density enables government more easily deliver essential infrastructure and services in urban areas at a relatively low cost per capita. Population dynamics are the result of individual choices and opportunities. To address and harness the opportunities of population dynamics for sustainable development, countries should seek to enlarge, not restrict, individual rights. Countries should work to expand people's choices, resourcefulness, creativity, and resilience by adopting policies that are human rights based and gender responsive. Human rights based and gender responsive policies such as promoting universal access to sexual and reproductive health rights, including voluntarily family planning and education. So that's all about the relationship of growth population to sustainability.
So I will discuss about the relationship between population growth and economic development of a country. Population growth helps the process of development in certain ways and hampers it in certain other ways. This is so because the relationship between population growth and economic development is complex and interacting. On the positive side, an increasing population means an increase in supply of labor. a basic factor of production and growth of population and labor supply, has all along been one major source of growth and recorded history. It is to be noted that human labor assisted by necessary tools and implements was always and still the greatest productive asset of nations. A growing population leads to an increasing total output, but it also makes a greater number of persons among whom this output must be divided. There are more productive hands, but there are also more mouths to feed. The effect of population growth on a society per capita output level depends on the pattern of population growth. It also institutional framework. In other words, it depends on the age composition of the population. For example, population growth is associated with high fertility and increasing number of children, relatives, and adults. Then the number of consumers will be growing more rapidly than the number of producers. The dependency burden on the active workers of the society will be heavier and the effect may be negative, but if there is a rise in life expectancy which extends the productivity years of the workers of the society, then the problem of an increased burden of dependency may be at least partially offset. The pattern of spending reflects the age distribution. An aging population, one that contains a rising proportion of old people, requires an increasing quantity of products conducted with old age and relatively fewer conducted with the young. The industrial system has to adjust itself to the changing demand of goods and services. That adjustments could cause problems, partially because the labor force is less adaptable in an aging population. Young workers are generally more productive and adaptable, although older people maybe have the advantage of experience. They are likely to be less energetic and enterprising. Moreover, in a aging population, the young have to wait longer to reach a position of responsibility and this could have discouraging effect. Of course, the assertion that young people are more productive in to open to contradiction, especially by the elders. However, few would question the views that they are more adaptive and easier to train for new jobs. A young population should also provide a larger flow of school leavers able to start work in industries and labor is most needed. The difficulty and expense involved in the movement of the workers between industry are thus avoided. A growing population within a limited geographical area usually puts heavy pressure on the existing factor endowments, especially natural resources of the community. Moreover, if the society has a limited stock of capital labor, may have to be substituted for a capital, in which case the production function will exhibit the law of diminishing returns. This occurs if the variable factor is labor. While capital is fixed factor, diminishing returns may become a serious problem if population growth is rapid and there occurs particularly no or at best a marginal increase in natural resources, land, or man-made resources. However, technological process convert the operation of law, and at least temporarily, a growing population means a growing market for most goods and services, and we know that division of labor is limited by the extent of the market. A potentially expanding market may stimulate entrepreneurs to invest more and more in capital goods and machinery. Business activity will be served and a consequence too.
Good day. This is Ian Moody, and I am here to talk about the relationship of population growth to the future of globalization. From what most people have observed, globalization has brought a great influence in the advancement of our culture, economy, and even the country in general. As years continue to go by, population keeps on growing non-stop, thus having countries with overpopulation issues. But having a big population isn't so much of a problem if you have a huge economy backing you up. Population growth most definitely has a relationship with the future of globalization because nowadays people are easily influenced by cultures being introduced to other people or even the internet. For example, I, a Filipino, have seen a video or a meme in the internet. Unfortunately, I fail to understand it because the context isn't Filipino related. But when I check the comments, some people explain the context of the video. Thus, I am able to understand the culture of how foreign people think. In our generation, technology has a great influence even to the younger audience. Thus, having a huge spike in population growth makes it to where people are being introduced to the vast amount of cultures being shared in the internet. To sum it up, the future of globalization lies in the population growth of the countries that heavily supports globalization because the more people that are being influenced, the more globalization evolves and becomes a huge thing. People will learn each other's cultures and development will become a lot faster. Having a technology related world makes it easier for the younger generation to explore the vast knowledge being introduced by globalization. Globalization grows as population does.